Welcome to High Infidelity, the best cheating videos on YouTube. If you enjoy this content, remember to subscribe and turn on notifications. Now let's get into the video.
My wife 62 female and I 62 male divorced 12 years ago after 36 years of marriage and raising 2 wonderful children. I later learned she had cheated. Ex-wife now wants us to date again. Should I? Does this ever work? After a 12-year divorce, my ex-wife wants us to date again. Should I do it? Is this ever successful? I was devastated at the time, but I'm doing great today and enjoying my single life. A buddy suggested I share my experience here so that others may learn what worked for me and what didn't, as well as how I found out and survived. Every encounter teaches us something. It's been 12 years since all of the turmoil. I'm sure the tone and attitude would have been quite different if I had written this at the time. The guy who created the phrase emotional roller coaster was spot on, because you can't get off, but the ride becomes smoother. Life carries on notwithstanding. We had an almost ideal marriage. We met in college and married shortly after. I was and she was a beauty who was also quite intelligent. We waited many years to have children until we were both financially secure and established in our jobs. We did go through some difficult financial times and had to make some sacrifices at first, but we were both on the same page when it came to spending and saving. We socialized together, shared interests, and did everything as a pair. We supported each other through family tragedies and challenges, including each of our elderly parents' ultimate death, as well as a number of our own health worries. She overcame cancer, and I had a triple heart bypass. We are both fine now. We were real partners in every manner, as are most married couples. A group. As the kids got older and our wages rose, we relocated 3 times into increasingly finer houses, same school district. We even purchased a lake property 2 hours away when our children were tweens and spent many happy moments there over the years. Despite all of this, as well as saving for the kids' education, we were able to become fully debt-free in the final few years of our marriage. A long-held ambition was realized, and we celebrated with a night out on the town, limo and all, like affluent people. It was a lot of fun, but even for that one night, we set a budget and kept to it. Even after we had children, our private time was always enjoyable. We had fewer of these as we got older, but they were still enjoyable. We both started about evenly, and after so many years, you simply know when your spouse is in the mood and when he or she isn't. We had date evenings at least once a month when the kids outgrew the toddler stage, and we went on vacations, camping excursions, and a variety of other things as they grew older. We were constantly absolutely engrossed and preoccupied. We joined a bowling league when the kids were old enough to remain home alone, and bowled once a week for years with nice friends. We were so preoccupied with our own more demanding careers and the children's activities that I hired a maid service to clean and wash laundry a couple of days each week. My wife was first opposed, but rapidly changed her mind. She was concerned that the kids would become entitled and lazy, but we made sure they cleaned their own rooms, put away their washed clothing, and performed all of their regular jobs like garbage and yard work. Acts of service and words of affirmation were my wife's love languages, and I knew it. Quality time and physical touch were my native languages. We never really fought or yelled at each other, since it's just not in our nature. We were usually on the same page when it came to major issues, although we sometimes clashed on little details. Normally, I succumbed to maintain harmony, but if I held strong, she would give me the quiet treatment for a few hours or a day, but that was all. I know we were really happy in my heart, and I know she would have agreed. Our children are 2 years apart, a boy and a girl. They are the light of our life, and they are now both grown and establishing their own families. Our son, like me, was an outstanding athlete in high school, and our daughter was a cheerleader and member of the chorus. Our kids didn't cause us too much problems since my son's coaches, and I kept him on track for sports. He received a baseball scholarship, and our daughter has always been well-grounded and mature for her age. She was always daddy's daughter, save for a year or 2 as a young adolescent when she despised me. I couldn't do anything properly, but she grew out of it and we reconnected. Surprisingly, at the conclusion of her high school years, the wife and daughter were often at odds and did not talk. I suppose it's a mother/daughter thing, but once our daughter moved out and on her own, they got extremely close and call or text almost every day. All of this to say that we had a wonderful marriage, wonderful children, and a satisfying life for 36 years. That's a really long time. We told each other how much we love each other and performed the I love you more routine. We repeated our vows on our 30th anniversary and went on the honeymoon we couldn't afford as newlyweds. We invited the kids, but they declined since it was our time. We had everything. She was still attractive, as I told her, and I was as well, as she informed me. My wife, after our children had grown up, slipped into the Petty Lee song-like mindset of "Is that all there is?" a little more than 12 years ago. I had just turned 50, and she was 49 and about to become 50. I could see she was upset, and I even walked in on her weeping silently a couple of times. We had numerous lengthy chats over the following several weeks, and she told me she loved me and our life, but she felt she wanted something more. It was also her, not me, and I had done nothing wrong. I was perplexed and concerned. I assumed it was simply empty nest syndrome, a midlife crisis, or a newie. This must be corrected. I tried everything. Reading relationship literature, being more attentive and complimenting, and doing things I knew she liked. She experimented with different hobbies to spice up her life. I also attempted to arrive home early, exercise more, twice a day, and have my hair cut once a week so that I could always look my best for her. As I spiced things up, our private time actually increased for a short period of time. The problem was that it didn't appear to be working. In fact, all of my additional efforts and attention had the opposite impact. She seemed to be less interested in me, not more. How is it possible? She ultimately said that she needed independence and space, and that she wanted us to divorce. I pleaded for a brief separation, but she appeared dead determined on divorce. I was astounded, as were the children. Why? What transpired? What has changed? After that, we stopped communicating as much. Because I was afraid of the response, I never inquired whether she still loved me. I asked a few times if there was anybody else, and she'd reply something like "That's not what this is about," so I figured the answer was no. I had no reason to suspect anything since she had always been absolutely open with her phone and computer, and had never gone out late with pals, so I rejected that possibility. Besides, she would never do anything like that. She would occasionally stay late for business and travel a bit more to call on her client accounts. But we both had high-level jobs by then, so I figured that type of stuff was normal. I booked a coffee with one of her closest pals to inquire about my wife's shift in attitude, and she, too, seemed shocked. Menopause, hormones. Her buddy agreed to find out and inform me. My marriage was on the verge of disintegration. I had lost my appetite and was having difficulty sleeping. I sobbed a lot when I was alone, which is unusual for me since males don't cry, and I would have moved mountains to keep her. Just show me the mountain. I used to believe that if I worked hard enough, I could repair everything. But this time I didn't know what to mend. I was losing her and felt powerless to stop it since it was absolutely out of my control. I recall lying flat on the floor and looking up at the ceiling for hours in a trance-like state. My loving dog would come up and place his large head on my chest, breathing with me. Dogs have a keen sense of smell. My job was suffering as a result, so I took a 1-month vacation. Staying at home and being alone throughout the day was a big error since it exacerbated the situation. When my wife came home from work, I had done the yard work, cleaned the house, done the washing, done the shopping, prepared supper, set fresh flowers on the counter, and dressed casual but nice, all for her. I couldn't help myself since I hadn't yet learnt my lesson. It's remarkable how attempting to attract a girl can entirely energize and concentrate a guy. It must be in our DNA. Unfortunately, she would simply go up to shower and then come back down to dine in her least appealing flannel bedclothes. Sometimes she acknowledged my efforts, sometimes she didn't. She wasn't rude or vindictive. She was just detached. I'd ask her about her day, and she'd respond with a few phrases and maybe a few remarks about the kids, and that would be the end of our chat for the day. We used to go on and on about everything during and after supper. She now spent most nights at her home office until it was time to go to bed. She did allow me to snuggle up behind her in bed for a little period, but the personal moment had come to an end. I attempted to ask her what had happened to us in various ways, but she only shrugged as if to say I don't know, sometimes with a tear. She had to be aware of how much she was causing me pain, but she refused to discuss it. We got divorced. As you are aware, the agony was excruciating. I'd failed. Even though I tried my hardest, I wasn't enough for her. I feel terrible for anybody who has lost a long-term companion. It denies the reason you existed all those years, as if your time with her was nothing. We both remained friendly throughout the divorce process, and our lawyer assisted us in splitting assets about 50/50, with her agreeing to most rulings in my favor. There was no shortage of funds. We each retained our pensions, asset plans, and stock options. When we signed the final papers in the lawyer's office, she sobbed a little. We soon sold both the huge home and the lake house when he formally filed. She was no longer interested in them, and I was too devastated to desire either of them without her or the kids around. Stay tuned for next part.